Hello, students. Welcome back to Fusion360. I'm going to show you how to create our first part in this program. Now, you have an assignment of several little objects that you need to make. The first one looks like this. I call it the Space Invader because it kind of resembles the look of a Space Invader from the old Atari game from the 70s, maybe 80s. And they call them widgets because they're kind of useless. They don't have a function, but they do help you hone your skills. So it's like a useless skill building tool, random parts for you to build. And we have some options, ways that we can make an object, any object in Fusion 360. That could be additive or subtractive modeling. So if we wanted to do a subtractive modeling, when we start with subtractive, we could make a block that looks like kind of like this. It'd be like 2.5 inches deep by, looks like 3 inches long, and then 2.5 inches tall. And you could make that block, and then you could create squares here and extrude them away, make them go away. And these divots and features would be extruded off of that block, kind of like carving, if you will. The other option would be a sort of additive, where you would take this and break it up into smaller pieces, like this one here, and make that one, and then below it you'd make this larger block, and it would be more like construction with blocks, where you, like you did with the drawings earlier last week. You could create this in Fusion 360 by building chunks onto a block. There is a third way, which is maybe a little bit more simpler, but maybe also a little bit more abstract, where we could draw the perimeter of this entire widget and then extrude that back the proper depth. And that's the way I'm going to show you to do now. This is it cuts a few steps down, but it is a little bit more, a little harder to see and visualize maybe initially. But I'll show you. I'm going to show you this now. I'm going to move this back and forth a few times so that you can see it. But look at on the blend page if you want to follow along, and occasionally look at the model so you can see where I'm going with this. I keep my Fusion 360 with a certain setting that you might want to change every now and again. I keep the units in millimeters because I model mostly in millimeters, but this one seems to be made in inches because 1/4 millimeter is not very big. So I'm going to change this to inches from millimeters. And this is something you can do while the document is live and after you've created some stuff, but know that the values will stay the same. So if you created it in millimeters and then you change it to inches, it's going to stay the millimeter size. It's not going to get larger. So you should do this at the beginning, change your units. And this is under document settings if you have not seen that yet right here. So we need to start with a sketch. And we have a few options as far as planes that we want to use. And because this little jobby is, this outline seems to be on this plane, I'm going to start with that plane. I like it. So I'm going to start here. And now I need to draw some lines. Many, many lines. The first one is 1.5 inches tall. And you don't really have to pay attention to any of the numbers that live out here. It doesn't really matter how squared up with this it is. This is called the origin, by the way, if I didn't tell you that already. So I'm going to draw up, and you can see as you move your mouse up, this number starts growing, and there's an angle you could change. We want it to be square, 90 degrees up, and you can type in 1.5 into your keyboard, and you'll see that it automatically goes up. Don't hit enter until you're ready to permanently place that line down, which I am now. I'm going to hit enter, and now I have a line, and it's very cool. I can create another line. I should go over to the right. It appears to be 1 inch. It's a little hard to tell. So I'm going to start at that line and move over 1 inch. Hit 1 on my keyboard. It moves over. Hit enter. And so now I have the first corner of that Space Invader guy. It's now going to go up 1 inch. So another line, straight up. Hit 1 and then enter. And now I'm going to go again to the right. How much? 2 inches in this case. Let's hit 2. There we go. And now I'm going to continue this just like you can see in the diagram. Over 1 inch, down 1 inch, over 1 inch, and down 1.5 inches. One more time. If it automatically fills in at 1.5 inches, that's fine. You can just click down, and now you have your line. If you click down, you can. It'll actually, you don't have to re-click on the line tool every single time, which is very helpful. The next part seems to be 0.5 inches. Click. Cool. And I'm going to go up 0.5 inches. And then over, some math I have to do. Looks like 3 possibly. Is it 3 inches? Very good. And now down to the base and then over finally. And there we have it. Look at that. And you see, once you have closed your sketch, once your sketch is a closed loop and no longer open, and this is only really works with lines. Once, if you do rectangles and circles, they're already closed. But once you have a closed loop of lines, then it colors itself, it shades itself. And so at this stage, we are good, and I'm going to click finish this sketch, and you'll see what happens. It goes back to a home view like that. Now I have a 2-dimensional object here. We want to make it 3-dimensional. And you do that with what is called an extrusion. We're going to pull this back 2.5 inches. You do that with the extrude tool. I'm going to move this out of the way. This is the extrude tool right here. Extrusions are how you make 2-dimensional objects 3-dimensional objects. So once I click it, you can see that there's a bunch of options here, and we're going to talk about these a lot over this semester. There's a few options. You can click and drag your object and drag it out into 3 dimensions. You can also manually type in the value. It needs to be 2.5, and you can see there it extrudes out to 2.5. You have options. You don't have to go in that direction. You could go in this direction if you wanted to, and that's the same thing. It's just going in a negative direction, negative 2.5, and it accomplishes the same goal. Totally fine. You can also do this in like two directions and make it symmetrical, but we don't need to do that yet. There's lots of options here for extrusions that we'll be talking about soon. So I'm going to hit enter, and now that goes away. We now have a body here, this Space Invader body, and it looks pretty good, I think. Looks a lot like what we have here without all the details. And you'll see here in bodies and sketches, we have our, this is a failed sketch from earlier, it looks like, and here's our sketch 2. This is the one that we just created, and the body we've just created. If you want to see this from another angle, you can always rotate around on the view cube. If you don't want to click and drag on the view cube, you can just use your mouse. If you hold down Shift and then hold down your scroll wheel, you can orbit as well. Pretty useful right there. Now we want to make the little head that comes out of here, this tab that comes out. This will be a little trickier here. I'll show you how we need to do that. We need to create a new sketch. This time the sketch is going to be right here on the front, it appears, or the right side, rather. We're not going to put it up here. We're going to put it here on this part of the body. And we need to make a rectangle. And that rectangle, I'm going to use the rectangle tool. It's a 2-point rectangle, which means I'm going to click down and then go across, and then you can click down again. But before you click down again, you can type in manually your dimensions. And you'll see I'm not putting it exactly where it needs to be yet, because I can place it exactly where it needs to be later on. So we know that this is a 1.5 inches wide. And if I want to go to the other dimension, you see the one that says 0.35 inches, I hit the tab key on my keyboard and it highlights. And I can go back and forth between those two by hitting tab. And it appears to be a 0.25 inches, a quarter inch tall. Now if I hit enter, our rectangle is right here. Now I can't do anything with this. I can kind of drag it around if I wanted to by clicking on one of the sides, and I think we can do that with the corner as well. But we want to be more precise than that. So we want to add a dimension. We need to put a sketch dimension in here because we want to place it exactly 0.75, 3/4 of an inch from the top, and exactly a 1/2 inch from this side. We're going to do that by adding dimensions. Now you go down here to create, down on your toolbar, and click on Sketch Dimension. I'm going to click on that, and you get this interesting icon on your cursor. And what I want to do is I want to click on the two sides that I know. I know that this side here, the top of our new rectangle, needs to be 0.75 inches away from this top edge. So I'm going to click on this one, and I'm going to go to the top, and I'm going to click on this top edge. And now, let's try that again. Right here, here we go. I can drag this dimension out and place it off to the side. So now I can see it and I can edit it. And type in 0.75 on my keyboard and hit enter, and it will now move my new rectangle down to the appropriate dimension. So I clicked on this line and this line, and because I want them to be separated by 0.75 inches. I need this line, this left edge, and the left side of my Space Invader. I need these two to be 1/2 of an inch apart. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to click on this side. I'm going to click on this side. I'm going to drag it down out of the way so I can see it and edit it. I'm going to 0.5 there, hit enter, and it's going to scooch it over. So now we have a fully dimensioned sketch. This rectangle is exactly where it needs to be based on the data we have, this image. Now I'm going to click Finish Sketch because it's done. And now I have this square, or this rectangle rather, sitting here off to the side. And now I want to extrude it. I need to extrude it 0.75 inches. So I've come up here to the Extrude tab, or button rather, click on it, and extrude it 0.75. And you'll see that it scooches out a little bit. I could also go backwards if I wanted to and make it a hole, but I don't want to do that right now. I want it to go out by 0.75. Hit enter, and now we have this Space Invader. If I want to see around it, I'm going to hit the hold down Shift and the scroll wheel, and I can orbit around and check it out. And here's my guy. You've now created your first part, and that's pretty cool. So you're going to want to save this into your system, Space Invader widget, save, and take a screenshot and submit this to me. You're going to do this for all the parts that we've created. Good job.